Hey there, curious minds. Welcome to this journey into the depths of our digital age. Today, we're going to delve into a topic that evokes a strange mix of power and panic. A topic that can change a life in a matter of minutes with just one post or one video. Have you ever been afraid of saying the wrong thing online? That fear that a single word taken out of context could unleash a storm of hatred against you. That fear has a name that resonates everywhere, cancel culture. But what exactly is it? In essence, it's a modern form of ostracism, a practice where a person or entity is expelled from social or professional circles, be it online, in the real world, or both. A massive, coordinated boycott by public opinion. Its proponents argue that it's a vital tool for social justice. They claim that, for the first time in history, ordinary people have the power to hold the powerful celebrities and corporations accountable, entities that once seemed untouchable. From this perspective, cancellation is a direct consequence of their actions. A way for marginalized voices, those silenced for centuries, to finally have a platform to expose injustice and demand real societal change. Think about it for a moment. Public figures who have committed reprehensible acts or spread hateful messages suddenly face tangible consequences. Lost contracts, withdrawn sponsorships, ruined careers. The power of the collective manifests itself. This mechanism, according to its supporters, is a way to redistribute power. It takes the monopoly on morality away from traditional institutions and hands it to the people. It's democracy in its rawest, most direct form, applied to social status and reputation. In an ideal world, this tool would serve to build a more equitable and responsible society, a place where no one is above criticism and where actions have clear repercussions. But this is where the story gets much darker. Now let's look at the flip side of the coin. Critics of cancel culture describe it very differently. They call it a new form of digital puritanism, a modern witch hunt where there's no trial, only a verdict. The term digital puritanism refers to an extreme moral rigidity in the online space, a mindset that doesn't accept mistakes, allows no nuance, and seeks an ideological purity impossible for any human being to achieve. A single past error can condemn you forever. This view argues that the digital mob acts as judge, jury, and executioner. There's no opportunity for defense, no presumption of innocence. The evidence is often a 10-year-old tweet, taken out of context and scrutinized under the moral microscope of the present. This creates what sociologists call a chilling effect on free speech. People become afraid to express unpopular opinions, ask difficult questions, or even tell a joke, for fear of being the next target of collective wrath. Public conversation is impoverished. Debate becomes impossible when one side only seeks the annihilation of the other. The goal ceases to be understanding or persuasion and becomes silencing, to completely erase the dissenting voice from the digital map. Furthermore, this dynamic ignores a fundamental pillar of human growth, the ability to change and evolve. If a person is forever judged by their worst moment, what incentive is there to learn, to sincerely apologize, and to improve as an individual? Here we enter the realm of social psychology. Why do we participate in this? One reason is a phenomenon known as virtue signaling. This is the act of expressing an opinion to let others know we are good people. By joining the chorus of public condemnation, we demonstrate our adherence to the group's morality. We position ourselves on the right side of history, which provides us with a sense of security and belonging. It's a way of saying, I'm one of the good guys. Neuroscience also has something to say. Studies suggest that moral outrage activates the brain's reward centers, similar to how food or money do. Feeling morally superior is literally pleasurable. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. Social media platforms, with their like and share algorithms, are designed to amplify strong emotions. And anger, especially righteous anger, is one of the most potent. Another key factor is groupthink. When we are in a crowd, even a digital one, our individual responsibility is diluted. We become more prone to adopting extreme behaviors we would never consider alone. The online mob gives us anonymity and a sense of collective power. It's easy to forget that on the other side of the screen is a real human being with fears, family, and a life that can be irrevocably damaged by a tsunami of digital hatred. Historically, humanity has experienced episodes of what is known as moral panic, moments when a society is dominated by fear of a perceived, often exaggerated evil and reacts disproportionately. Witch hunts are the classic example. Some cultural historians draw a direct parallel. They argue that cancel culture is the modern manifestation of that same impulse. The search for scapegoats to blame for society's ills to purify the community. The crucial difference, of course, is speed and reach. An accusation in the 17th century could take weeks to spread across a region. Today, it can go global in less than an hour, unfiltered and unchecked. This leads us to a fundamental philosophical question about justice. Should justice be punitive or restorative? That is its goal to punish the offender or to rehabilitate them and repair the harm caused to the community? Cancel culture, in its most aggressive form, is overwhelmingly punitive. It focuses on punishment, exclusion, and public humiliation, leaving very little room for redemption, forgiveness, or learning. Restorative justice, on the other hand, would seek dialogue. It would try to make the offender understand the harm they have caused and take concrete actions to amend it. It would foster reconciliation instead of permanent division. The problem is that the digital environment is not designed for restorative justice. It doesn't favor nuanced conversation, empathy, or lengthy processes. It rewards instant reaction, quick judgment, and forceful condemnation. So are we trapped? Are we condemned to oscillate between the impunity of the powerful and the tyranny of the digital mob? Perhaps the solution is not in the extremes. Perhaps, as in many things, the key lies in balance. It's undeniable that holding people accountable for their words and actions is necessary. Impunity has caused immense damage throughout history. Complicit silence in the face of injustice is, in itself, a form of violence. However, a society that loses the capacity for forgiveness becomes fragile and paranoid. If there's no way back for those who make mistakes, we create a world of outcasts, a digital hell where rehabilitation is impossible. Here comes the most important twist. The real danger of cancel culture isn't just for celebrities or public figures. The true danger is how this mindset filters into our daily lives, into our personal relationships. Think about it. Friends who stop speaking over a political opinion. Families torn apart by ideological disagreement. The logic of cancellation, of total exclusion for a fault, is becoming a model for our most intimate interactions. We are losing the muscle for tolerating disagreement, the ability to debate with someone we disagree with without dehumanizing them, the capacity to see the person beyond their opinion, however wrong it may seem to us. This leads us to the concept of the digital panopticon. The philosopher Michel Foucault described the panopticon as a prison where inmates always feel observed, even if they don't know if someone is watching them. This forces them to self-regulate their behavior at all times. The internet has become a kind of panopticon. Every comment, every like, every photo we post is recorded forever. It's a permanent archive of our digital self, which can be examined and judged at any point in the future. This constant surveillance, not by a totalitarian state, but by ourselves, by society itself, fosters conformity. It pushes us to construct a public version of ourselves that is as harmless and acceptable as possible, hiding any complex or controversial thoughts. The result is a culture of feigned authenticity, a constant performance where we display our virtue and our alignment with the correct ideas. But what about genuine thought? What about doubt, curiosity, and error, which are essential for knowledge? The debate, therefore, is incredibly complex. It's not a simple struggle between good and evil. It's a collision between values that we all consider important: justice and freedom, responsibility and forgiveness, security and expression. Perhaps the question isn't whether cancel culture is good or bad. The question is how we can use this new collective power in a wiser, more compassionate, and ultimately more constructive way for society. The solution might involve reintroducing the concept of proportionality, the idea that punishment must fit the offense. An unfortunate comment shouldn't have the same consequence as a proven history of abuse and discrimination. It also means fostering a culture of calling in rather than calling out or canceling. That is, instead of seeking immediate exclusion, we could try to educate and dialogue first, give people the opportunity to understand their mistake and rectify it. This requires more effort than a simple click to cancel. It requires patience, empathy, and the willingness to engage with ideas that make us uncomfortable. In short, it requires a greater degree of digital maturity from all of us. Because at the end of the day, platforms and algorithms aren't solely responsible. It's us, the users, who decide what to amplify and what to ignore. We have the power to turn a spark of indignation into a wildfire or to put it out with a dose of context and reason. Cancel culture is a mirror of our own anxieties and aspirations. It reflects our deep desire for a more just world, but it also reveals our fear of imperfection, both in others and in ourselves. Moving forward doesn't mean returning to an era where the powerful weren't held accountable. That would be an unacceptable step backward. It means evolving towards a culture of accountability that is demanding but also humane. A culture that understands the difference between a mistake and a pattern of behavior, between ignorance that can be educated and malice that must be confronted. A culture that, instead of discarding people, tries to repair the social fabric. It's not an easy task. It requires us to resist our most primal impulses for quick judgment and group condemnation. It requires us to choose reflection over reaction, to choose difficult conversation over comfortable silence or furious shouting, Technology has given us a hammer of immense power. We can use it to destroy or to build. The choice in every click, in every share, in every comment is ours. And the consequences of that choice will define the society of tomorrow. This phenomenon isn't black or white. It's one of the most complex gray areas of our time. It's a double-edged sword that, depending on who wields it and with what intention, can serve justice or tyranny. We've seen how it can bring down predators and abusers that the justice system couldn't or wouldn't touch. This represents an undeniable victory for victims and a social advance. It's people power in action for good. But we've also seen lives ruined by misunderstandings, careers ended by a decade-old error in judgment, people who, having apologized and shown change, are haunted by a digital ghost that never rests. The debate over deplatforming, that is, taking away someone's online platform, is central. Is it a form of censorship or a form of editorial curation? Do companies have a responsibility not to amplify hate speech? Those who support this measure argue that freedom of speech doesn't equate to freedom of reach. You have the right to say what you think, but you don't have the right for a corporation to give you a megaphone to reach millions of people. Opponents, on the other hand, warn that this sets a dangerous precedent. Today, someone we disagree with is silenced, but tomorrow, that same tool could be used to silence our own voices if public opinion shifts. This relates to the concept of the Overton window, a political science concept. It refers to the range of ideas that the public is willing to consider acceptable. Cancel culture can drastically narrow that window. If only safe ideas can be discussed, society loses its capacity to innovate and solve complex problems. Progress often arises from ideas that were once considered radical, heretical, or dangerous. Furthermore, there's an inescapable economic component. Brands, fearful of controversy, are extremely quick to cut ties with anyone who attracts negative publicity. Their loyalty is not to the person, but to their bottom line. This creates a culture of risk aversion. Public figures and content creators can become blander, more generic, to avoid offending any segment of their audience or a potential sponsor. Creativity can suffer. The psychology of the canceller is fascinating. Often it's not about an individual, but a coalition of groups. Each may have a different motivation, but they temporarily unite to bring down a common enemy. Once the target is neutralized, that coalition often dissolves, or worse, turns on one of its own members for not being pure enough. It's a dynamic that consumes itself. Consider the role of context. In digital communication, context is easily lost. A sarcastic joke is read as a literal statement. A private conversation becomes public. The fragment is judged without understanding the whole. Our brains are wired to fill in the gaps. When context is missing, we invent it and generally assume the worst possible intention. It's a cognitive bias that is massively amplified in the online environment. So how do we navigate this minefield? A first recommendation from digital communication experts is to pause. Before joining the mob, breathe, investigate. Look for the full story. Don't get carried away by the incendiary headline. Second, try to differentiate between criticism and cancellation. Criticism is healthy and necessary. It points out a mistake and seeks improvement. Cancellation seeks the social annihilation of the person. One seeks to build, the other seeks to destroy. Third, we must humanize the debate. Remember that behind every profile is a person. Avoid dehumanizing language, however much we disagree. The goal of debate should be the exchange of ideas, not the destruction of opponents. For public figures, the situation is even more complex. The pressure is immense. Some choose silence, hoping the storm will pass. Others issue apologies that are often criticized for being insincere or insufficient. The performative apology has become a genre in itself, a public ritual where sincerity is almost impossible to gauge, and where the audience has already decided the verdict before the words are even spoken. This leaves us in a precarious position. If justice is the goal, but the methods resemble those of an enraged mob, are we truly advancing as a society? Or have we simply swapped one set of oppressors for another? Anthropology teaches us that rituals of purge and exclusion have existed in all cultures. They are a way of reinforcing group norms and defining who belongs and who doesn't. Cancellation is our digital version of this ancient ritual. The problem is that our tribe is now global, and norms change at breakneck speed. What was acceptable yesterday is grounds for cancellation today, and what's acceptable today might not be tomorrow. We live on moral quicksand. Perhaps the antidote to the poison of digital puritanism is not the absence of judgment, but a more sophisticated judgment. One that accepts human complexity, values intention, and believes in the possibility of redemption. This also implies educating ourselves in media literacy, learning to detect misinformation, to understand algorithmic biases, and to consume news and opinions in a more critical and less emotional way. It's a survival skill in the 21st century. We cannot expect platforms to change on their own. Their business model is based on engagement, and strong emotions generate engagement. Change must come from a collective demand for a healthier digital environment. Imagine a future where social media incorporates speed bumps for controversies, mechanisms that slow down the spread of outrage to allow facts and context to emerge. Imagine an online culture that celebrates those who change their minds in light of new evidence, instead of punishing them for their previous stance. One that views the evolution of thought as a strength, not a weakness or hypocrisy. It's an optimistic vision, perhaps, but the alternative is an endless cycle of moral panics, a society fragmented into ideological tribes that hate each other, and a public space where fear reigns. We must aspire to something better. The power to cancel is real. It's here to stay. Our task as a society is to learn to wield it with the wisdom and responsibility that such a powerful tool demands. It's not a game. It has real human consequences. In conclusion, cancel culture is one of the most paradoxical forces of our era. It's a symptom of a society yearning for justice, but lacking the tools and patience to administer it fairly and compassionately. It is both a cry from the voiceless and a dangerous echo of conformity. It's a reflection of our desire for a better world and our worst tribal impulses. A living contradiction that defines the cultural battleground of our time. The next time you see someone being canceled, I invite you to pause, to look beyond the surface. To ask yourself, is this truly justice in action, or is it something much older and darker, dressed in a digital disguise? There are no easy answers here. And anyone offering you one is probably selling you a simplistic ideology. Reality is a messy gray, and it's in that mess that we must learn to live and coexist. The challenge is not to choose a side, but to transcend the dichotomy, to foster accountability without falling into Puritanism, to fight for justice without sacrificing compassion, and to use our collective power to uplift rather than just to destroy. This is one of the great ethical and social dilemmas that our generation must solve. How we do so will define not only the future of the internet, but also the future of our ability to function as a pluralistic and democratic society. The conversation doesn't end here. In fact, it's just beginning. And it needs all voices, especially those who dare to navigate complexity instead of retreating into the certainty of extremes. Perhaps the first step to healing is to accept that we are all imperfect, that we have all made mistakes, and that we will all need grace at some point in our lives. Empathy must be the starting point. The path forward is uncertain, but the need to find it is urgent. Because a society that loses the capacity to forgive will eventually devour itself. And that is a fate we must avoid at all costs. So the next time you have the power to cancel at your fingertips, remember the weight of that action. It's the power of justice, but also the power of destruction. Use it wisely. We've journeyed through the light and shadows of this very current phenomenon. I hope this analysis has given you new tools to think critically about the digital world we all inhabit. Thank you for joining me in this deep reflection. Your time and attention are the greatest gift. I hope I've lived up to your curiosity. Now the conversation is yours. Do you think cancel culture is a force for good or for bad? Leave your theory in the comments and subscribe for more explorations of the big debates of our time.